My opponent must have some crazy brew because he's 2-1 right now with red-green Luffy. This is Pudding versus red-green Luffy here. I ended up taking second and slapped the camera a little too late, starting on the second turn here, going up to the second opponent's second turn. I ended up keeping a hand with Zorojuro in hand. We ended up taking the first hit here, 6k, and then my opponent shows me a Film Searcher. All right, we know what kind of nonsense potentially he's on here. This is a Film red-green Luffy deck. This is going to be pretty interesting here. Going to reveal a nice little 7-drop. That means the board is potentially going to get flooded a lot. There's going to be a lot of blockers that we're going to get through. Speaking of blockers, that's a Viola in hand. That Viola here is going to pretty efficiently allow me to get up to 10 Don here. Zorojuro was the other play, right? We could play Zorojuro and the next turn still get up to 10 Don on the fourth turn here. That's kind of the benefit of going second, is you really only need 2 sources of ramp. We've got the leader swing as well as the other ramp source here. We're going to go ahead and swing 7k. We're going to reveal top 2 cards. Yeah, that is Conquest of the Sea on top of my life. Yep, honestly, like, I'll die on the hill. I think that card's pretty solid, especially on your 10 Don turn. You can do a little bit of shenanigans here, especially with Sanji blocker. You can KO 2 6s because it Don minuses 2. You'll have 4 Don left over. You can swing 6 with lead and then play the Sanji blocker. It's a pretty solid little 10 Don turn play when you got nothing else to do, right? If you don't got a big mom to slam, sometimes you need to do a little bit of a board clear. Viola there, going to make my opponent guess what's going on by flipping the top of my life back down. So my opponent could be questioning if that top card has a trigger or not, and I will tell you that event does not have a trigger, but who knows, right? That's the game of the guess here. Another Searcher Luffy comes down, grabbing a Nami here. I'm on a pretty solid play. I've got the 7-drop mom in hand, which is like the perfect middle curve filler, right? The first 2 turns of the game, or at least the second turn of the game, you're trying to ramp to some degree. Third turn of the game, slam down the 7-drop mom, and then fourth turn of the game is to slap down a 10-drop mom, and that's the typical gameplay of this deck. Ramp early, play big things later. Try to stay alive. Try to keep your life total pretty healthy. Opponent swung a 5k, then a 6k. I'm just going to use some cards from him to get out of that. We're going to go up to 7 Don here. Viola, again, flipping my life face down means that I can use my Pudding's leader effect again to reveal the top 2 cards of my life and do a little bit of ramping. Gonna play out a Charlotte Linlin. Opponent immediately decides we're just gonna trash that card. That's a Blano blocker. One less blocker we have to worry about. We're gonna go ahead and send 5k lead. We're gonna reveal the top 2 cards of life. We're gonna say, hey, did you forget what was on my life? Because those are the same cards. And my opponent does check to see if there's a trigger, and unfortunately for me, there is no trigger on that card here. We're gonna pass back over to my opponent here. I have an 8k on board, feeling pretty good. My opponent's at 2 life, I'm at 3. I know that if my opponent hits me, I'm going to have some ways to be able to clear a few of his things going up to 10 Don on this next turn. But likely what I'm going to do is slam down a big mom here. Though if my opponent does give me something to put onto life, I could play the 9-drop mom. Though with my hand getting pretty small, that 9-drop mom not looking nearly as good in this specific spot. I am definitely not fully on board for 9-drop mom, just because you have to trash a card, right? Trashing a card, especially in this specific deck where every card in your hand matters, honestly pretty big downside, and that's why I'm not nearly running as many of them as some other lists are. And opponents are just going to use the Nami there to grab the 7-drop Luffy. That means no 7-drop Luffys this turn, but potentially next turn when my opponent goes up to 9 Don, we're going to see some 7-drop Luffys. Going to go ahead and attach 2 to Little Luffy. Little Luffy's going to go ahead and swing 5k at lead again. Still pressuring my hand a little bit. We're going to go ahead and just take it, add that Conquest of the Sea to hand, and then my opponent's going to go 6k at lead. I really don't want to go down too far. Typically at Pudding, it's great to stay at 2 life. You typically don't want to stay down any less, though I am likely going to just play out the 10 cost here. I could play the 10 mom. I could also just wipe away some of the board here. That Nami's a little annoying. That Nami's going to constantly get value off of searching top 3 for a film card. We're going to start with the 5k at lead here. Pudding I see as an aggro deck when it needs to be an aggro deck, and a control deck when it needs to be a control deck. In this specific realm, opponent doesn't have too much of a threatening board, so I think sending everything at face here is probably worth doing. We're going to send 8k at lead as well. Opponent's going to show me 2 2ks, and then we're going to go ahead and play out the 10 mom herself. Opponent's going to trash a Cavendish off the life, and I'm going to gain a life here up to 3 life. Red-green Luffy we've seen at least 2 7-drops in hand, so I know some blockers are likely going to come down here depending on what my opponent does here. But it's definitely quite the brew that my opponent's working with here. But Pudding, man, you slap big moms into big moms, and that can just destroy any deck. So that 10-drop mom likely going to be the nail in the coffin here. I'm going to have a 9-drop mom to play with next turn, or I can just wipe 2 characters and play the Sanji blocker with the Conquest of the Sea. Opponent's going to go ahead and activate the Nami effect. Grab a film blocker, the Shiraya, and then I'm just going to take it, getting a Bond Clay to hand, a nice little 1k. So right now I'm a little low on counter. I've got 3 1Ks and a 2K. That 2K is likely going to come out on the board as part of the Conquest of the Sea play. Opponent's going to play out a Hawkins, which pretty much tells me I'm playing Conquest of the Sea this next turn, because Conquest of the Sea is one of the best answers to Hawkins, as well as I could use it to pop the Hawkins and the Nami. And then my opponent, thinking here, likely going to send 7k lead or send 5k 5k. Either way, those are cards. Either way, if he sends a 7k, I'm going to be taking it. If he sends 2 5ks, maybe I'm a little incentivized to counter out of it. We'll see here what my opponent decides to do. Going to go ahead and decide to swing twice here. 5k, I'm going to go ahead and give him a Zoro. He's going to go ahead and swing 5k with Luffy. I'm going to say, hey, why don't you get the 2-for-1 special? I'll give you another Zoro. And then my opponent's going to pass to me. This means this is the turn for the Conquest of the Sea. Yes, we have a 9-drop mom. 9-drop mom cannot get rid of Hawkins, right? Hawkins effect requires you to rest anything anytime it leaves the field, whether it's going to life, hand, bottom of the deck, trash, yada, yada, yada. So that Conquest of the Sea is actually going to come in pretty handy here. We're going to see an 8k at lead here, kind of forcing the opponent to potentially block with the Basil or use cards from hand. The opponent definitely doesn't want to go to 0 here. Opponent's going to go ahead and counter out of it, double 2k. Now we're going to send a 12k at lead. This is probably likely going to pull a block out, because going to 0. Oh, okay, just going to go to 0. Because now I've got, like, yes, I could swing, honestly, I could swing 8-8 and just see what happens, but my opponent has a lot of cards in hand, so it's definitely not worth doing. We're going to send 9 at lead. And I instinctively accidentally just tapped it on there. You just see the little flick of the hand here. I should actually have 6 Don up. Opponent's just going to go ahead and block the 9, as it's very threatening here. I'm going to say, oh crap, that should be tapped up, because I'm going to use that 6 to play a Conquest of the Sea. Conquest of the Sea was originally going to have 2 targets, but since he blocked with the Hawkins and let the Hawkins go, I no longer need to attack with Viola. That was me actually going back and like, oh crap, I need to attack with Viola. I was like, oh wait, no, Hawkins is gone. Anyways, we're going to clear the Nami and clear Luffy, leaving my opponent with basically no board. And we know we've still got them some 7-drop Luffys in hand, so it's possible he could just vomit out a bunch of blockers this turn, which is something that these specific decks or the film decks are pretty good at doing. We're going to see here, opponent's got quite the hand. At least 5 cards in hand, 6 cards in hand now, as he's staring at down a pretty sizable board here. Pretty scary. Gonna go ahead and play out a Law. This deck's all over the place. Gonna play a Law out. Law's gonna grab Luffy to hand, play out a Shiraya. Luffy's gonna come back down. Luffy's gonna look top 3, try to find something cool to work with here. Opponent's shuffling it up. That gives me a sign that there's nothing in that pile to grab. Opponent's just gonna grab a 10-drop Shanks here. Nah, it's a brick in the hand. 10-drop Jinx would have been pretty great if it was already in hand, just to clear the Big Mom, but because he's already at 0 life, it's going to be pretty unfortunate here. Opponent still has 3 Dawn to work with. Could be another Shiraya, though I think I only saw him grab 1 Shiraya. And opponent's actually going to show, so he asked if he could show his hand to the camera. That was a playset of 7-drop Luffys into Shanks, so his hand literally had no counter in it for the memes here. He's going to go ahead and send 8k at the Big Mom. I'm going to go just 1k out of it with the Bond Clay. Opponent's going to pass to me. He's got 2 blockers up, and I have 3 attackers, and he has no counter in hand, as he showed. So you can do the math yourself. This game is pretty much over. It was a pretty fun little game. We were joking and laughing literally the whole time. We were having a blast, and it was funny that we got matched up against each other to finish out the night. But going 2-1 with Red Green Luffy must have had some pretty solid plays. It seems like he can come together sometimes, but I did ask him if he's ever used his leader ability, and I think he said no. So he said it could honestly be any leader. He said next week he might throw Chopper or Red Green Law as the leader with the same package. But ultimately, it was a fun game. We're going to send 11 at lead here. Opponent's thinking real hard. He's got at least 5 2Ks in hand. I was like, all right, you got blockers, and so he's gonna block, and then we're gonna send another 12k lead here. We're gonna send 12k. He's gonna go ahead and block, and then we're gonna send the rest to face here. What is that? That's math. That's 12k lead here. Opponent's gonna show me a playset of Luffy's here. I told I saw the attitude hand. I was like, what are you doing working on your playset? And he was showing me off a playset. He's got a playset of Luffy's and a Shanks. That's a GG's. A funny game, but I had to showcase this one for you guys. Just showing just Pudding's power. But fun game at all. If you like this type of content, leave a like, leave a like, and also subscribe. Thanks for watching, everybody.